and this is Wednesday of the Winer Wellness Week, the Fall Fiesta version. Number 99, Wellness Week number 99. Hard to believe, but we're here. Next time will be our centennial, but we're loaded for bear today, folks. We started off, Jamie and I, talking to you this morning at 9 o'clock a little bit about CBD. So we brought in our expert, our resident expert on CBD, and that is Vic Treshoff. He is here with us today. Where are you coming from, Vic?
Hang on a second. I lost your audio, guys. Sorry.
Okay, are we, no?
Great. Are you there? I lost your audio. I'm sorry.
He can't hear us.
Did you mute one of your devices?
Give me 1 second. I don't know if you can hear me or not. It's something happened with my phone. So let me call you right.
Can you say something, Vic? Can you hear us?
Can you hear us now, Vic? No, he can't hear us.
Can you hear us, Vic?
Yeah, I got you now. Sorry. I had something come
through. All right, good.
Well, it's nice to be here. Sorry, I missed part of the introduction for that modern technology and all the technical joys that come with it. So my name's Victor. I've been tasked with kind of going over, and I tried to put together kind of a presentation that kind of gives a little bit, works with our body, as well as some of the potential benefits that can help us with. So don't hesitate to ask questions. I've been doing these for a while, so I kind of has a unique perspective or something that they've come across. So I'd love to answer that question for you. So CBD's kind of gained prevalence. The 2014 and 2018 farm bills, which realized it using industrial hemp. So the big distinguishing factor between marijuana, as people know, is it's the same plant. It's the same genus, and it has been basically bred to have very, very low amounts of THC in it, 0.3% THC. And so what comes out of these hemp plants is basically more and more of these compounds, but we're finding that there's at least 100 cannabinoids now that have been kind of plants. And out of those 100, there's really two that people really are familiar with and start to come along lately. But that being said, is THC and CBD are kind of the difference. THC is commonly known as the psychotropic one. A lot of people THC, whereas CBD is not really truly psychoactive. Benefits that we're starting to see now are derived from the CBD. Not saying that, but I think especially for federal or all 50 states, we're able to utilize. The way that CBD and all of these cannabinoids work into our endocannabinoid system, which our endocannabinoid system is cannabinoids. And so like any other thing that we can process our diet, sometimes you need to supplement that, especially with the way that food is nowadays. So its system really has receptors throughout every system in our body. There's the CB1, which is the central nervous system, and the CB2 nervous system. So you can just think of it, the CB1 receptors are mainly brain related, actually everywhere else. There is a ton of research out there right now, and getting better and better as the legalities have changed and more universities are able to utilize cannabis, as we commonly know it, to do this research. But Studies that have been shown for appetite, this whole list, which is a pretty big list. I think people get caught up in this world that CBD is this end all cure all, which, is, but there is a lot of potential benefits throughout our whole body with, and I think it's an important thing because of the dramatic effect it can have. It is an important thing for people to supplement regularly, just the same way they would make sure to get water, certain core nutrients that we should be taking in on a daily basis because of the way these days, because we have so many stressors in our environment, sleep, diet, work, money, government. There's just so many things stressing us, beneficial of that. So to get into, before we kind of get into CBD, I think it's really crucial that we know what we're looking for in a quality, because there are a lot of things out there, and just like any other stuff, a lot of people that are doing really great things and things that are really trying to bring that supplement out there to help people, and they want to do things in the correct way. Fortunately, there's a lot of people out there just trying to make a quick buck, capitalizing on the name, potential benefits, and they're doing it in a way that is less than honest or truthful. So it's what CBD products you're actually getting. For example, you'll see people to Amazon and they'll put in CBD oil thinking that they're going to buy something, because unfortunately a lot of people do it exclusively because of the ease. But a search of CBD oil on Amazon, a variety of results, but none of them are actually CBD oil. They're all marketed to be CBD oil, but they're actually basically seed and stock oil, which is no different than canola, and there's no benefits whatsoever to it. But that's kind of the importance to understand out there. So just like any other thing that we're going to grow, whether it's where our meat comes from, the sourcing of the hemp is critically important. In an area that has pollution, toxic solvents, hemp plants are incredibly in air. So depending on where that hemp comes from, that can dramatically augment in that CBD product. So obviously, domestically grown products are crucial. CBD that we saw come out was actually from China, which comes from very polluted air. So the sourcing of that hemp is critically important. And then, second is actually USDA organic. I think probably a lot of the word organic or all naturally grown, unless it's certified organic, 100% certain that no glycophosphates were used, no other toxic herbicides in the growth, and that the soil is safe. And once again, just like if you're spraying herbicides or pesticides onto the plant, it's going to absorb, eventually going to turn into the medicine that you're trying to take. So where it's grown and how it's grown, like any other nature's ingredient that you're getting. The next is the type of extraction that's used. For me, I prefer the supercritical CO2 extraction method that doesn't use any toxic solvents. The other kind of extract, and so the way that people extract other BU is that they're using ethanol, or the worst one for my mind is using these like acetone, hexane, pentane. Ethanol extraction it's cost prohibitive to do it if you're doing it organically, and then you really need to make toxic solvents, the ethanol, after you're done processing it. So the gold standard for that quality, I know that there's always emerging technologies, but that's really been the one that there's always debate, obviously, when it comes to full spectrum. I don't feel like isolate should be in the conversation, because you're turning into a white powder using really toxic solvents. There are some USDs out there now, which are, once again, moving the needle in a positive way. Personally, my belief is that the more of the plant that you can, the better, in a way that's going to, be palatable and compliant for patients. The definition of these is basically full spectrum means that it does have THC in it, and several studies have shown that THC actually improves, especially benefits of CBD. Broad spectrum is but no traceable amounts of THC, which can sometimes be a misnomer because some who is actually selling you the product. Some companies will just change the threshold for being 0% THC, but in reality, it could have a lot of THC in it. They just changed it. And the problem again with broad spectrum or isolate is that typically when people are doing some kind of other chemical to remediate the THC out of the product and remove it. So, it's very important, moving on to the next point, that product is used. And there's a vast difference between someone just throwing organic on their label called XYZ organics because they're implying that the product is certified or that USDA organic seal on there. None of that matters. And for CBD, it's reality. It's the only third party independent testing that is done in products, and that goes to every ingredient that goes into that product. But especially in an industry like the cannabis industry, there's an immense amount of quality controls with it. It means that you're keeping proper lot numbers of the products that are manufactured ingredients. So if there was something like a recall, that company could properly see who received the product. And there's just so many different factors. All of the ingredients sourced have to be USDA organic to reach that 95% threshold, which believe. And so that USDA organic really, especially, is really important because it brings that quality control. And it doesn't mean that people won't from an isolate or a broad spectrum or a non-USDA organic product. It just gives you knowing what is in that product versus other things. Keep in mind is just different delivery methods. There's kind of three common. The oral oil, which is ideally taken sublingually because there's some topical products. Very few companies. Frontiers offers a transdermal product, which is very different from your standard top. Transdermal base actually will penetrate the skin, so you'll get some systemic benefits, just benefits. And then there's the other third option, which for some reason is all supplements these days, is gummies, which isn't necessarily goes back to the quality of the ingredients, because a lot of the gummies that you're going to see on the market, especially with CBD, there's some inconsistency with dosing, and then obviously there's a whole host of things like artificial dyes, colors, preservatives, and sweeteners in them. So that whatever you take actually jives with what your health mission is. I personally, for systemic relief, I like transdermals or topicals for localized relief, obviously systemic relief too. So just some common questions that I kind of delve into the potential benefits of the CBD, but some of the common questions consumers should just really be aware of is, will I test positive on a drug? The answer, drug tests are so wildly variant at this point that not differentiate between CBD or THC. Some of them might be just testing total cannabinoids. Body metabolizes things, differently. The likelihood is very small. But that being said, is if your freedom or your job require you I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't be taking any CBD product, whether it has THC in it or not. You
Would that
know,
apply to
how
the
much
transdermal cream as well, Vic?
from a, if I were a business, I would say yes, because there's just a lot. The chances are lessened for a topical versus an oral, but the transdermal, since they're in your bloodstream, because of the delivery method, there's always that chance. Dosing on most transdermals is very, very low in comparison to orals. Most people are taking to 60 milligrams of CBD at a time, whereas transdermals are typically 5 or 10 milligrams. So once again, it's the chances are there. It's just be very.
There's no guarantees. That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
So
The only
you're right.
guarantee is not doing anything. Yeah.
Right.
Dosing is always an interesting question that I've come across, and there's studies that'll do anything from to very little. What I would say anecdotally is that I've heard need, it seems to be somewhere between 40 and 60 milligrams, a happy number for some people. Some people require more because they're at a greater, their systems in their body are off. And we'll get into how CBD can help you. I've also had people that honestly were having sleep troubles, taking 20 milligrams and getting some relief, and they actually got better relief from sleeping with getting back into how everybody's different and metabolism's different. On less of something, I typically would always tell people, like, do you need more medicine or supplements to notice a difference? And if they are on the less side, then I would always start them on CBD and then have them gradually increase how much they take versus the opposite.
I think it also depends on the level of the issue. I mean, the level of pain, for example. If the level of pain is a 9 out of 10, 25 milligrams is not going to make much of a dent. I can tell you that I have an experience with my daughter who was having severe heel spurs, and the pain was excruciating. And so we experimented with different levels, starting with 25, 50. We had to get up to over 100 milligrams, but she got relief. But we had to get up to that high.
Really, the interesting thing for it is, the other thing that I'll liken it to is an incident, but an analogy that I think a lot of people can kind of understand is wine. And depending on how you slept, what you ate, anxiety, that 2 glasses of wine can dramatically differ how you actually are feeling. Like, you could get, or you could not feel it at all. So I feel like with the CBD, I think that there's kind of feel the benefits with, and it's kind of like a regular supplementation, depending on increase of stressors, decrease of sleep, dietary and environmental factors, a specific injury, then you might need to dramatically increase or even decrease your dosing. A couple of other things just to kind of bring up. There's a lot of people are 9 products before we move on to this slide, and I just wanted to address that. 8 products are basically hemp legal versions of THC. The intention of those is to get high. And so a lot of states that don't have legalized marijuana, they're kind of skirting those laws to try to use this Delta 8 product. I think it's just something to be very aware of. I have no problems with people. I think that's fine. But
could you go to
going
a little
back
bit more
to the
detail,
quality,
Vic, on that? Explain exactly what Delta 8 is. You kind of did, but we need a better explanation of that.
Yeah. So, without knowing the whole name, THC is basically, if we go back to this first slide and you look at it, this is the chemical makeup of cannabis. Delta 9 or THC, as we're familiar with it. One, it's that there's a double covalent bond. on the delta 9 part of the and so what people have found is obviously delta 9 is illegal in the vast majority of states in the United States. So what they do is they're able to, using acids or other chemicals, break the covalent bond, converting it into delta 8 THC, which would be legal under the. It'll get you high. The issue with it, though, is that a lot of the companies do a very good job of cleaning it up after using these acids or solvents covalent bonds. Right. So it's a delta 8 product. Like, listen, there are all cannabinoids, whether it's sleep, pain relief, nausea, lack of appetite. But that being said, is the vast majority of the delta 8 products that you're going to purpose is really to get high.
Right.
So
okay.
the other what's that?
No, I'm just, I've seen a lot of them, the Delta 8s, and they're brownies and gummies and brownies. And, I from what I can see, there's no other benefit. They're really, I guess it's just the feeling, the euphoria that you get from it.
That is it. I mean, listen, there's going to be some benefits that you're going to get from it. The reason they use medical marijuana is because of pain and or anxiety, which the way that THC and medical products have gotten this day is they've actually induced a lot of they grow it in such high percentages of THC, and they've bred out. So what we'll see with people, like pets are always a great example, since pets don't you can't placebo a pet. When pets have or CBD oil, they can actually have increased anxiety and eating or anxiety, and it's not from the CBD, it's because of the amount of THC that they take. Keep in mind with that. And the other big question that we get, before we move on, is will it get you high? And the answer is it's not intended to be psychotropic. I have to take CBD, and they are in such a sympathetic stress. CBD helps them get out of that anxiety, and and there is a kind of euphoria with that, but it is not a true psychotropic. It's more it's of them getting out of this stress state that they've noticed the benefits.
Right.
So if I can't see the question things now, I don't know if we have any questions kind of going over the background stuff.
No, we're good. Go ahead, Vic.
Okay. So just to kind of get into what CBD can help with, and once again, I this panacea, because I think all too often people say, I don't want to go back to the days of snake oil salesmen. So I don't want you to think that. Most of the things that I've talked about, studies that are out there with these things. So there is a huge amount of benefits for affecting every system on our body. But CBD is really more of it is the same reason that you can't go to the gym and then go eat a gallon of ice cream, except CBD is really to be integrated with a healthy lifestyle that includes exercise and meditation and diet. And that's where you're going to really see the most benefits out of everything. So, the big three that people would say would be sleep and pain relief. I would kind of cut those in there. And then, there's some really interesting studies that are coming out, how it can help with things like brain health, which I think there's some overlap, obviously. So the help with sleep is, first and foremost, as anxiety. With, for example, I am an ADD person. So for me, the hardest thing with me would be falling asleep, or if I wake up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep, is because my mind is constantly. And so for me, CBD is super beneficial. It doesn't make me sleepy. It helps me turn off my brain. And sometimes that means turning off the anxiety. And there's studies on how this can be beneficial. There's some studies that show that it can naturally increase GABA, break of the brain as well. But for a lot of people, what it really is that it's going to be helpful with insomnia, because there's some neuropathic leg syndrome. It can help reduce that, and there's even some studies that have shown that it can potentially help. So really, the kind of 3 or 4 conditions with sleep or lack of sleep, if you really notice with CBD, is reducing these 4 helps people get a better night's sleep. And there's been some objective as well as subjective to do. The great thing nowadays is with these really good sleep wearables that I have an Aura ring, which is tremendous for sleep monitoring. Some interesting metrics that are objective numbers that are showing other things can improve with that.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is pain relief, which is pretty interesting how CBD can work with pain relief, because it kind of works in 2 directly bind to the CB1 receptors in our brain. It actually inhibits bind. Can then, there's basically hormones or things in our body can either increase something or decrease it, but then there's a third option where it can act on another hormone, which can then up regulate or down regulate. So done. I think pain is probably the best studied thing, because they're able to do that with not with humans, where you're dealing with something that's more of a placebo effect, which you always have to be careful. But that CBD really has shown a lot of benefits when it comes to neuropathy in rats, decreasing inflammatory markers, things that CBD can help with, both from a pain, whether it's chronic pain, like we were talking about with heel spurs or things like that, as well as systemic inflammation. Arthritis patients are a great example. CBD, a combination of a transdermal or topical CBD where the pain is at, like their hands or feet, is a really great way to combine or combat both the systemic inflammation that you localized symptom, which is the pain site. Obviously, once again, this is mandated as much as you want with the CBD in this, but figuring out what the inflammatory product inflammation is the most important thing. But CBD can be really great with that, and that is neuropathic pain, CBD being very main that we've seen. So once again, it's CBD is great because it not only works in CB2 receptors, it also works with other receptors that can dopamine and serotonin, which we'll talk about in the next section, which is brain health. A lot of great studies that have shown how CBD obviously can decrease anxiety and depression. So when we talk about our endocannabinoid system, the endocannabinoid we produce on our own, and I always mess up the way that this is pronounced, but it's anandamide, is basically one of our own cannabinoids that we produce. So studies have shown that CBD can regulate dopamine and serotonin production by raising our own system. Raising that dopamine, raising the serotonin, not only does that help with depression and anxiety relief and other things around our body. I've seen amazing things will fight seizures. I've actually talked to a woman whose son was very heavily medicated by having seizures. And once again, CBD being part of an overall wellness diet, she was not only able to get her son off of CBD, or excuse me, but she was able to get him off medications and hadn't had a seizure in the last 5 months. To a person like that, you can tell someone who's not at their wits' end, but haven't slept, and seeing that effect that she's been able to elicit in her son, amazing thing that you can see. And once again, as the dose dosing for that as part of a whole thing wasn't issue. Was doing maybe 90 to 120 milligrams a day in addition to a diet. So dogs that have seizures a lot, as well as for dogs, we've actually seen it where the dog will have to say that they were able to give the dog the oil in their mouth and it got into the mucosal layer of the seizures.
There's been numerous studies out there that show that originally they didn't know if it was it was the marijuana, the THC, the CBD that had the greatest effect on seizures. But now we know for sure, for certain, that it is the CBD component that has the greatest effect on seizures. They've shown that in numerous studies.
Yeah, and a lot of the way that CBD kind of came to market, if you will, was the idea of treating Dravet syndrome, which is a very specific type of seizure disorder. That there's obviously numerous ways that seizures can be elicited or happen with thing that all the practitioners I've talked to, minus having a genetic or something like that is the issue, and that's why CBD can be so beneficial for it. Two is there's definitely a lot more promising studies on things like Parkinson's and overall brain health. From a Parkinson's perspective, there's a CBD. There's also a therapeutic effect for the non-motor symptoms. For Alzheimer's, the endocannabinoid system can really regulate various paths related to Alzheimer's, and it may provide some symptomatic relief or the progression of Alzheimer's because of the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and neurogenic effects. And so, one of the ways.
I don't know, Vic, if you were able to see it or not, but on the Nutritional Frontiers website, we have a phenomenal video of a Parkinson's patient and the protocol. It wasn't just CBD, but that was a component of the protocol. It was primarily the. Did you see it?
No, I hadn't had a chance to see that. I'll definitely.
Yeah, it was the Perlmutter protocol with CoQ10, DMG, essential fats, and CBD, and it shows a progression over from 2 weeks to 6 weeks to 3 months on how the motor skills improved. It's a really, really eye-opening video. It's real time, real people kind of stuff, not these clinical trials. But yeah, we have real patient testimonials on this for Parkinson's.
I think it's getting a bifurcation with where we are at. I think at a lot in this society where there's some that are from your traditional Western medicine with pharmaceuticals that are helping slow down or these disorders, but there's been an equally interesting on the other side from the integrative functional delving into the inflammatory response and how especially most of these cognitive issues are of things like decrease of sleep as well as systemic inflammation naturally, which I think is obviously always the best first option against Western medicine by any stretch of the imagination. I think that there's very crucial things that were with that. It's been really interesting, the progressions even in the last 5 years for things like that, but then also just understanding how much sleep affects our bodies, especially our brain, and then how that can be helped with supplementing CBD, other nutrients. And just one more point that I think is that CBD can actually really help. I always pronounce it autophagy, but it's basically our brain's
autophagy,
ability to clean out the damaged cells that are in there. And CBD is very good at that. Analogy, hopefully the people we're talking to aren't under the age of 30, but used to run slow. There was something called disk repair on old Windows computers where it would kind of realign the old pieces of stuff, and that's basically what our brain needs to go through. is very critical for that, and CBD is really shown to help with that. So, getting that, getting back to it, that getting to this core thing is that's really crucial for inflammatory response, and it can have that effect for sleeping. It can relieve and brain health. It's also critically important for things like stress, and then can also affect sleep as well as brain health. So there's tons of other things, like there's studies that show how CBD can help gut health, and it can help with potentially insulin sensitivity. But I think that if you're going to get at the core of what CBD, those are some good ones.
Yes,
I kind of wanted to.
I just wanted to mention too that there was, I don't know if you're aware, I think we might have talked about this before, about the study that was done at the California Institute of Health in 2018 using CBD with human breast cancer cells, and how the CBD was preventing the progression to metastasis with that. And it was a published study, but you don't hear about it.
Oh yeah.
We're coming up on October.
Supplement
right?
companies.
Health.
Yeah, supplement companies have to walk a very narrow things like that, even if they are published articles and relaying to
absolutely.
them. But there's some of the products that we're going to talk about before or next. Along with that, with things like mushrooms, could be critically important to helping things like cancer. Those things have been studied, and how both of those can really help with that. So, I just kind of wanted products that are available at the World of Wellness that I think are really interesting products. Kind of like, CBD has obviously been used for hundreds and hundreds domestically before it was banned, but using it as medicine, and there's some really great that have been used in traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and help people through what I would call nature's ingredients. So there's kind of a line of there. I think they're amazing things, to be honest, and it's the great all certified organic. So going back to that quality control, like mushrooms really, making sure that they're not grown in with heavy metals, fillers in them. There's nothing, no artificial colors or preservatives or flavors. Trying to use nature's ingredients to try to help people. And so these are some really that have had some really, once again, going into some historic knowledge, like traditional Chinese medicine has obviously used mushrooms for millennia. And so there's a daily powder, which is, 8 organic mushrooms, only using the fruiting bodies. It's obviously that's out there, but the fruiting bodies of the mushrooms have the glucans. There's obviously other nutrients in the mushrooms that are found in the mycelium. Some mycelium products that you'll see out there is that the mycelium's grown and like a high tendency to have a lot of filler in the product. So it might say that they're mushrooms, but some of that might be what it was grown on. And all of the mushrooms in this product that they're intended on trees and naturally instead of grown in mycelium. So it's got 8 different mushrooms that, products, and what they're doing is that they're actually sourcing the ingredients from the people that grow them. So there's an immense amount of chain of quality that goes to these. Like, for example, the cacao has been sourced from a 5th generation Dominican farm. You can make some really you can make some great brownies, because all these products can be, baked with. But mushrooms, increasing white blood cells, T cells. So really
what you're
interesting
saying is that
there.
they're not the therapeutic effect is not diminished from heat, so you can put it in a hot beverage or cook with it, bake with it, right?
Exactly. I mean, once again, as normal cooking, like if you extended for super high temperatures, but there's no issues with that. You know, most people take the immunity powder, they'll either bake with it or be for kind of like a cafe mocha. I personally, when I use it, I put it in after I work out in the mornings, and I combine it with the vitality powder. Vitality powder it's got 15 different adaptogens in it, inflammatories, but then it has other things in it. Baobab is super nutrient dense. Himalayan sea salt for some of the salt and magnesium that you lose, as well as 3 mushrooms that are very good for fighting inflammation. And so this is a really great post-workout matcha and maca in it. It gives you a non-jittery energy boost. So this is one that you can difficult to tell that your immune system's getting stronger. But this is one that most people will see. It's got less than a quarter cup of coffee in it. But it's a really interesting feel, and it's great after working out. And all of these are kind of, so just keep that in mind. I think as a society, we have this, desire to sweet. And all of these, since they're unsweetened, have a very natural, mild flavor to it, which is over what you're adding it to. See, we're running a little bit lower on time, so let me run through these just questions.
Okay.
You guys also carry this golden milk powder. The difference between this and the anti-inflammatory product, especially as it starts getting cooler. Hopefully it's getting cooler where you're at. I'm in Texas. But this is great with hot milk and just froth it up. And then it's like once again, mushrooms that are going to help with inflammation. Turmeric this can really help with systemic inflammation. Also great to bake with. We make pumpkin bread with something better than pumpkin spice. This makes a really good pumpkin bread. Also good with tropical smoothie. There's a new sleep product, which is really great. It's a melatonin-free, focuses on using ingredients that are going to help you prepare for sleep by increasing. Talk about that in the next slide. Chamomile is a mild sedative. We can actually improve our own melatonin production, which is really good. And then something in the hops, the passion flower, the skull cap, and the chamomile are actually all brewed, dried, so they actually make them more potent before they're added product. And then just wanted to talk about before the end here is just why there isn't melatonin in this, and because I think GABA is really critical, and there are GABA supplements out there. Once again, products that come from Earth whenever possible, but there are also awesome, great GABA products. The biggest thing with melatonin is just going back to even when we and quality control is just being careful. Any supplement is not really true. And melatonin is a hormone. So there's a lot of people like Paul. He is a huge proponent of melatonin, taking super high dosages of it, his clock and his rhythm. I personally don't like melatonin. It's not part of what people want. The sleep just doesn't have it in there, because if you do, by all means, add it in and it'll be beneficial. If you don't, then it's easier to not have it in the product. Again, just being very careful with who you're buying your melatonin and any other supplement. From a study that showed that 70% of melatonin products weren't even within the 10 to 15% variance.
That's
some
of
them,
you're going to see that when we discourage people from buying these types of supplements in the big box stores and the supermarkets, and
yes.
That's why here at the Wellness Center they're only professional grade brands, and all of the due diligence is done. You can rely on label claim. Here we can't say that for anywhere.
Oh yeah, big thing. And there's actually studies, and it's, once again, I think a lot of it goes to these big box gummies that you'll I saw a study that said that some of those were 480% higher than the some of them contain serotonin, and there's actually a rash of children thinking that their candy got too much melatonin because
Mm.
It looks like candy to them, like they're fruit snacks, and
Yeah.
so they're eating. I always
Yeah.
tell people, like, there is a vast difference between the supplements you're going to get at Walmart as opposed to a pharmacy or a wellness and practitioner's office, because
Correct.
there's standard that they're held to, and there's a difference why.
Right.
The same reason, like, directly with the farmer, it's much better than dealing with 50 people in between the. So
Well, the other thing
just a
is, I
lab.
mean, we think the biggest issue with sleep is not falling asleep, but staying asleep, and that's what you're addressing here.
Yeah, and this is like these things. I think personally for me, and I'm not a doctor. I've talked to a lot. Personally, feel like sleep is typically a hormone issue. What we're trying to deal with, I think most sleep supplements are more of a band-aid. It's not getting to the root cause of why this. But what this product is it's not trying to knock you out. It's trying to get in an ideal situation for sleep.
Right.
I personally like that about GABA is that gives to it's they call it the break of the brain. It reduces stress, it increases relax, equals out your moods, it equals out some endocrine function. So it's really goal isn't to just fall asleep and wake up an hour and a half later and then you're ready to go, awake again, just to kind of get your body, your brain especially, in a position to fall, stay asleep. So that is all I have for you all. Hopefully,
Okay.
and
This is
informative.
this is a brand new product line we brought into the wellness center. These powders, and we'll sample some of them out and let everybody try them. But I think it's a great addition to the product line. Anytime you can, use a powder, add it to a drink or a food, I think you get, compliance automatically gets a little better, goes up.
Actually, where you guys are located, or obviously as we move into fall and winter, I think that they're great additions.
Yes, we are.
That we kind of naturally enjoy. And once again, is you're kind of going, what people have been doing for millennia, which is using nature to help us feel, to moderate our health.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Vic. Thanks for your time today. It's always appreciated. And we'll let you know some feedback on these new products. But
that would be great.
The CBD line has been untouched, and it is just, it's phenomenal. We're getting great results on it. And I think we might even, if you want to stick around, we might play that video. Do we have time, Phil? Yeah, we're going to throw on that Parkinson's video, and your product was a part of this protocol, Vic.
That's great.
So thanks again.
No, I love to see it. Yeah, thank you again. It's great seeing you as always.
Right. Thanks. I can narrate it if there's no sound. Okay. Okay, so we may not have audio on here. So the first video was taken at the very beginning of this gentleman. And he, of course, his physician works with us. And you can see he's having trouble. He's early stages of Parkinson's. And I think it's important to note also here that, we can't, catching it early is very, very important. So this is him struggling to, even walk a straight line. So day 4 of the protocol. Here's the protocol. It's now called Enter-CoQ10, which is 600 milligrams combined of 300 CoQ10 and 300 DMG. He's walking with a little bit more spunk in his step, and his arms are swinging. Omega-3D, obviously, the fats are important, and our hemp extract that we get from the right here. 1 full drop at night. Now he's standing on one leg, which is something he could not do prior. You can see a noticeable difference in the confidence of his walk. Day 17, same protocol. Okay, 1,200 milligrams CoQ10, 4 soft gels of omega-3D, and 1 full dropper of our full spectrum USDA certified. He's riding a bicycle. Perfect balance. This is 17 days on the go. Let it real life. There it is, folks. And we will be back in just a few minutes for today's High Noon Roundtable with none other than Robert Scott Bell.